In a solid brick wall, traditionally in a major building, you might have 3 or 4 thicknesses of brick in a wall, and they were regarded as being waterproof in traditional British construction. In Australia, as walls became lighter and lighter, there were fewer and fewer thicknesses of brick in the wall, and the problem of damp coming through became more acute. They began to make walls partly hollow. They would lay the bricks in a way in which there were gaps inside the wall, which sent ventilation through the wall and let it dry out. But even then, any link across the wall might bring water in from the outside face. So they began to make quite separate walls, 2 separate walls with something to structurally join them together. And that's what we're seeing when we look at some of these examples here. First of all, they had forms of brick that would join them together, which I'm not showing you here. Then they had forms of metal. Now this was a metal tie, would have been flatter than it's shown here, and the 2 sides would be in the brick wall on either side, and this piece across the middle would go across the gap, and would have a little bend in the bottom, a little drip, to let the water settle there and then drip off down into the wall cavity. So this material is hoop iron, which could rust, and it would often be either sanded, dipped in tar and then dipped in sand, which has helped to preserve it, or later on galvanised with a zinc coating. Now, apart from having a single tie like this, you might have a thing like a ladder. This is the remains of one. The long piece of iron would go along one of the walls, and on the side there'd be a parallel one on the other wall, and they'd be tied together by a piece of hoop iron across the middle. So this ladder-like structure would go right around the walls. Later, those were replaced by wire ties, and this is an example. This is galvanised wire, an American invention, the Morse tie. Just a piece of galvanised wire turned around like that, so that one side goes into one wall, one in the other, and later on they would also have a little bend in the middle of them, so water wouldn't go straight across the wire, but would go down the bend and then drip into the cavity of the wall. So bricks were devised which would tie across the wall so that the moisture couldn't pass across. And T.H. Jennings was the English patentee who made these bricks in 2 shapes, one of which was like this and designed so that the water couldn't rise up the slope from the outer face of the wall. So in this case, you'd be looking at the outer wall being the low end and the inner wall being the high end. So any water that came in from this side couldn't rise up the slope and go to the inside. This was a British patent, and they were normally extruded bricks in Britain. It was copied in Australia, and this is the Australian copy. It's a handmade brick, and you can see the word patent is now in the face of it. This was made by T.H. Widdicombe of Port Arlington, whose initials appear here, T.H.W., who was a local brickmaker. And that was the Jennings patent brick as copied in Australia by T.H. Widdicombe.